Thank you, Mr. Just a couple of questions initially, going back to the consultation process. And look, we understand that this was disrupted because of COVID-19. Maybe if you could outline how you did overcome that in terms of the online meetings and how you facilitated that engagement. And secondly, now I see that next month you are planning engagement on a number of islands. When do you hope to be in a position now, or what are the timelines you're looking at in terms of the completion of this particular body of work? Initially, I think we were looking at the end of this year, but I know members are very anxious to see this published. And look, what sort of a timeline now are we looking at on foot of this further engagement? Another issue that the members have raised here consistently is the 20% reduction in public transport costs for everyone that uses public transport in this country except our island communities. This has not been extended to the ferries on our offshore islands. Now, absolutely, look, there's a tender process in terms of the competition that takes place, but as you know, there is a separate charge that is paid by islanders, which is not, let's say, the tourist charge that is paid for visitors to the islands. And surely there can be a mechanism found to reduce that in accordance with the reduction that we're seeing in other parts of the country. So maybe if you, your colleagues, would like to address those two particular issues.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the consultation process with the islands started in early 2020, and from January to April 2020 there were public meetings held on 11 islands, and then when the pandemic happened, then they moved to online. So I might ask my colleague Bríd Ní Chonaill in a few minutes to just speak a bit more about those various meetings that happened, and also our plans for the remaining meetings. Just to your point about the timeline for the policy, the Minister has given a commitment that the policy will be ready for her consideration by the middle of this year, and we're still aiming for that timeline. So we will have a draft for the Minister's consideration by the summer, and the hope would be that we could look at publishing it this year, subject to obviously any other issues that arise in the consultation process. I might ask Bríd just to say a few words about the consultation, and then I'll come back to the 20%, if that's okay.
Yes, as regards the consultation, we did a lot of the consultation in person on the islands in spring 2020, but with the pandemic, the COVID-19 restrictions, the process was suspended. Now it was reactivated again through online meetings and focus groups. So the community groups or the cooperatives were asked, in the participating islands, were asked to put together focus groups. Now sometimes that was made up of just members of the community, and sometimes it was made up of the committee members, and then we met online and went through a similar process to that in-person meetings. A number of islands felt that that forum didn't suit them that well, and we've had requests from 2 islands that we visit them now in person, so we hope to do that next month, and that's Clare Island and Tory Island. And of course, if we're always available, and we would accept submissions or any correspondence from individuals or groups on any island up to until after that period, so probably the end of May.
Thank you. And on the
Yes.
island, the ferry service, sorry.
The ferry service, the 20%, yeah. So as the deputies may be aware, the Department of Transport recently announced a fare reduction scheme that would provide a 20% average fare reduction on all train and bus services that are managed by the National Transport Authority on its behalf. So that scheme does not, however, extend to any other subsidised transport service managed by the Department of Transport or to the offshore islands schemes overseen by our department. So the department is not opposed to looking at this, but we do have some concerns about that retrospectively applying a fare reduction scheme to contracts that were procured might cause some issues for private and subsidised operators. Our main concern is to protect the existing subsidised services, and we need to be careful that we don't introduce any scheme that would undermine existing contracts or affect the ongoing public procurement process. So the Minister has written to the Attorney-General seeking advice on this issue, and that advice will be made available to us, we hope, in the coming weeks. So that's the position there.
And I'm not going to dwell on it, but the fact is that the National Transport Authority would have issued into contracts with private operators for public services on the mainland. So if we can alter this in terms of contracts with private private companies on the mainland, why can we not do it in terms of contractors who are servicing our islands? It doesn't seem the legal issue in relation to this is the same. It is a contract with a state body in terms of providing a service and a contracted level of subsidy in terms of the bus services that we have, in any other part of the country. So how is there such a big challenge in terms of the service to the offshore islands, particularly when you could apply the reduction specifically to the island transport fee rather than to the general population that would be using the ferry service?
Yes, so I suppose, Chair, when the decision was originally made, it was made in the context of the Department of Transport's subsidised services that are managed by the National Transport Authority. So, for example, the scheme doesn't extend to any other subsidised transport service that's managed by that department, including the PSO air services, for example, to Donegal or Kerry. So, and then because the offshore island transport services are managed by our department, a different department, the government decision in relation to that didn't extend to us either. So, as I have said, the Minister is not opposed to looking at this, and we hear the concerns about it, but we just need to be very careful that we don't create difficulties in relation to the procurement. I think it's worth pointing out as well in this context that islanders already benefit from subsidised fares on all of the island transport services, and I might ask my colleague Colin McDonagh just to give us some further details on that. But as far as I know, on most subsidised ferry services, the islander rate is in the region of 50% less than the standard rate. So perhaps if Colin would like to just give us a bit more detail on this issue.
Just, Colin, before you come in, and in that context, you might answer for me, because we have different rates on public transport services where we have private contractors who are subsidised to provide a service on PSO routes. Yes, some people will pay a commercial rate on that, and others will get it for free, people that have the free travel pass. So I accept that it is a different department. There needs to be funding provided for it, and I'm not disputing that. But I can't see how there is a legal uniqueness in terms of these particular contracts compared to the ones with the National Transport Authority. I fully accept that that wasn't part of the original government decision, and we have heard evidence here at the committee that the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform would welcome a request from this department to it to consider providing the reduction to islanders. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think it centres around the fact that many islands enjoy public service obligation contracts. They have subsidised services and private operations as well. So it's a mix of the two. And our problem really is that if we go back now and we start changing, or if we apply a 20% reduction on a fare that we've agreed with somebody that we went through the procurement process with, we're just a bit worried that maybe we might be undermining or leaving ourselves open to some challenge from private operators at that stage, saying that we are favouring people that are already getting a subsidy over private operations. Now, as we've pointed out a few times, it's just a concern that we have. And we have also asked the AG, or the Minister has written to the AG, just to seek clarity on this, for fear that we might end up at some stage undermining the work that we're doing at the minute. And we await on the response from the AG on that.
At a further point there?
Just one point of sort of clarification that has come to our attention the last few days is that the 20% reduction applies to the PSO routes managed by the NTA. So the contractors on them routes would enjoy exclusivity on the routes. There are no direct competitors on them routes. The contracts that we have in place for the islands are not PSO routes. They are tendered subsidised routes, but there are competitive operators running on the same routes. So I think there's a key difference there in our contracts versus the NTA contracts, and that's a point that's one of the points that we need clarification from the AG on, whether or not we'd be effectively distorting, giving an added benefit to one operator over others, and we may be in a position then that all the operators on them routes would look to get the benefit from our department, even though we don't have contracts with them. So that's kind of the key concern. It's, you know, so we're favourably looking at it, but just concerned in that regard.
Yeah, and look, I think it's important to get clarity in relation to that. We don't want to undermine the contracts, but and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the island subsidised service for islanders is only on a particular service. So you're not competing with, let's say, visitors. We're not subsidising the visitors visiting the islands, whichever operator they go with. So I just can't see how we're undermining that. But we, as a committee, we are anxious that the department would come to a conclusion in relation to this quickly and would make a formal request to the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform regarding it.